Chapter 6. Get this done. Tom threw up his arms. Wait. There ain't nothing to wait for. Weston replied as he raised his hand. Flinging it down, he shouted, "Shoot!" Tom dove for cover, landing at Dylan's feet, as Dylan ducked the onslaught of bullets. Tom's orders had been clear. The horde couldn't have much ammo. The deputies would wait them out, let them waste their bullets, then go scoop them up. Chaos erupted as the horde's shots blasted the trees, bushes, and ground around Tom's men. Dirt kicked up from the bare ground. Small twigs and leaves hailed down on them from above. Dylan flinched and went cold when something hit his arm. He snorted. A small rock was embedded in his arm. He flicked it out and took up his weapon again. Tom's men backed away from the volley of bullets, taking shelter just outside the horde's range. Once Weston's group realized their strategy wasn't working, the racket subsided. "Fight us!" Weston bellowed. Tom gestured for his men to stay steady and low. "Fight us!" Tom called out to him. "We don't want to fight you. We want a peaceful resolution to this. Let's work this out. I told you what was gonna happen here today. You can come out and face us or hide in those bushes, but it's happening. Without a doubt, it's happening." Tom scrubbed a hand over his face. "He's not leaving me much choice here," he murmured, "and they need to be taken care of, one way or another." Tom squared his shoulders and gestured toward the house. His men sent a volley of their own. Tom's men avoided hurting anyone. This was a show of strength, not a slaughter. Tom hoped they would see he had the superior firepower and cooperate. Still, their shots broke windows and splintered siding. Bullets sheared garden plants and exploded the ground around the horde. Most infected ducked and ran, taking shelter on the far side of the house and leaving the disoriented sick screaming and vulnerable to attack. Tom gave the order to stop firing. Once it was quiet, he shouted, "Like I said, I have others with me." The horde stayed hidden, their angry voices disagreeing over their next move. Dylan crouched, leaning back against a tree trunk, Wade at his side. "Now we wait," Wade said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. While Dylan could and would do what was necessary, it was Wade who found the most enjoyment in confrontation. Dylan had it in him to enjoy violence but hated that part of his personality. He reminded himself he was here for Sky and Jesse and the others on the mountain, for a purpose. Dylan hadn't had that before. He did now. Instead of relishing the battle, he would wait and savor a victory. Wade nudged him. "Come on, bro." He wanted to see a matching light in his brother's eyes. "I want to get this done, for them, all of them." Wade agreed. He set his jaw. "Oh, we will." While Tom's men waited, the horde got impatient. Every so often they would send a small volley toward the men, but Tom's group let it pass without returning fire. Until the bullets came from in front and behind them. Dylan and Wade dropped to one knee, twisting around to find the new source of firepower. A long line of the enemy crept among the trees behind Tom's people attempting to corral them. The middle of the line contained the most normal of the infected holding their best weapons. Each end included the sickest of the group. Frantic from the noise of the guns, the lumbering sick had been tied together to keep them in place. Dylan hissed. It was a brilliant plan, they used the sick as weapons. Dylan's noise caught Tom and Wade's attention. Dylan pointed out the enemy. The situation had just become more complicated, and Tom needed to make a decision. Tom eyed the army in front and behind his own. "I'm reluctant to split our people." Dylan watched Tom's thoughts play along his face with the familiarity known only to childhood friends. He knew the decision Tom made even before it cemented in his friend's mind. He slipped a weapon into Tom's hand and waved to Wade and a few others to follow him, leaving Tom and the rest to the group in the woods. Dylan and the men who followed him weaved across the small, grassy glen, using what little cover was available. The horde behind the house fired on them. Someone grunted in pain, but Dylan wasn't sure who, as no one stopped. Once Dylan's people made it to the house, they slapped their backs against the rough siding, holding their guns ready. Tom wanted this done with as little bloodshed as possible. Deputized or no, Dylan felt the same way. These people were in an impossible situation, one he could possibly be in one day. The thought made him merciful, but the bullets firing around him tempered that compassion. One almost caught Dylan as he peered around the edge of the wall. He huffed. "You ain't stopping us from getting home tonight." Dylan's gaze flicked to the battle raging in the woods, hoping that Tom was winning, then stilled when stealthy steps came around the side of the house. The infected were making a move. Quickly, he did a mental inventory of his weapons, deciding on a course of action. Out of his pocket, he pulled a flashbang and showed it to Wade. If they caught a break, these would work well to stun Weston's army, as the diseased were sensitive to light and sound. Before Dylan got into position, two bold infected ran down the side of the house firing their weapons. Wade and another of the men moved to the corner of the building, waiting at the edge for the infected to reach it. Dylan moved behind them while gesturing for the others to take the opposite corner. Cool and calm, Wade crouched, his finger ready on the trigger. The enemy was messy and disorganized in their approach. Dylan's men waited, letting them come. The infected rounded the corner, their guns raised. Wade fired, and the infected fell, their own shots going wild. Knowing their wounds were unlikely to be fatal, Wade took their guns from them and zip-tied their wrists as they moaned and thrashed on the ground. Dylan wasted no time in stepping out around them. He threw a flashbang to the other side of the house where the remaining sick and infected were. Then he stepped back using the house for cover as he waited for the explosion. When it came, the horde roared their confusion and ran out from behind the wall. Dylan and his men took advantage of the chaos and rushed the disoriented people. Dylan grinned at his brother as they got this horde under control. Wade and a couple others shoved the lurching, dirty sick into the house. They could deal with them later. Dylan stationed men around the near-normal infected, guns pointing directly at them. For all their fierce talk of fighting to the end, most became resigned to their fate and allowed their hands to be tied. But the fight still burned within a few. And when Dylan turned to survey the situation, he saw Weston almost upon him.